That's it? I promised Schnick in exchange that I'd review The Crow, City of Angels, and that's it? YouTube doesn't like it when you swear at the very start of a video, so... Poopy shoot!
The Crow is a 1994 superhero movie about a man who's raised from the dead to avenge the murder of himself and his beloved. In my humble opinion, it's damn near a masterpiece. Deeply and gothically atmospheric and stylized, and driven by an intense performance by Brandon Lee. Lee famously passed away during filming due to a defective prop gun, and watching the film is bittersweet at how the world was robbed of such an immense talent. So pop quiz! How many The Crow movies are there? Your average viewer would say 2, since we got a remake in 2024 that played like a visible stack of studio notes. Well, your average viewer would be wrong, because there are 5 Crow movies! There's the remake, the original, and the original's 3 sequels! The second film, The Crow, City of Angels, started out more ambitious than the original, with deeper characters, moral ambiguity, and expanding the mystical lore of the series. But producers the Weinsteins ordered City of Angels be hacked to the bone because they wanted it to be more like the first movie. The finished film was a goofy mess, disowned by both its writer and director, condemning the even worse third and fourth films to direct-to-video obscurity. And of course, the train wreck sequel is the one that gets a video game adaptation, The Crow, City of Angels, on PC, PlayStation, and the Sega Saturn. I'm playing on my PlayStation emulator. In a just world, a bad movie would have a good video game, but instead the bad movie gets an abomination. You play as Ash Corvin, a father who's killed along with his son by some gangbangers because his son is an idiot who ran towards the sound of gunfire. He's reborn as the newest iteration of the Crow to take revenge on the people who killed him. Except you pretty much have to have seen the movie to know any of that, because the game barely has a story to speak of. You see some people menacing 2 captives in a fart cloud, a crow flies overhead, and that's it. They couldn't even be bothered to properly tell the story in cutscenes, and the story isn't all that complex to begin with. So the game starts with you outside a bar with the bright blazing letters, Last Chance. This bar is not in the movie. They added this on purpose as a warning. And the inescapable first thought that screams through your skull, the controls are horrifically atrocious. The game runs on tank controls, meaning left and right turn you in place and up moves you in the direction the character is facing. The common comparison is Resident Evil, but not only are tank controls inherently awkward to use, the game engine works overtime to make basic movement a migraine. You walk extremely slowly and you get stuck on everything. You'll constantly just be unable to move because you clipped something innocuous in the environment and got frozen in place. I'm just trying to go through a door, a freaking huge door, and I can't do it because I'm stuck on Lord only knows what. This is not normal. There are even multiple rooms where you spawn in unable to move because you're caught on something. Was this tested at all? And what's worse is the game has fixed cameras that it cycles through as you play, and most of the cameras are zoomed out and set as close to ground level as possible. And the graphics are so dense and the model so small that the camera angle gives you 0 depth perception. You can barely tell what you're doing at any given time. Seriously, this was the very first thing I tried to do in the game. I can see spinning pixels off to the right to know that there's an item there, but I can't pick up that item because I can't tell how deep into this field of vision the damn thing sits! And what is with that walk cycle? I know Ash died, but that doesn't mean the Crow has rigor mortis. But that's just the appetizer. It's time for the main course. City of Angels is a beat-em-up game. You walk up to enemies and punch and kick them to death. Except all your attacks miss unless you're perfectly aiming at someone. And the camera makes it virtually impossible to tell if you're lined up with your target. You swing, and you swing, and you swing, and it feels like pure luck whether or not your shots land. Even if it looks like you should land a hit, even if your character is clearly making contact with the enemy, your attacks won't do dick unless you're turned exactly the right direction. And before you crack in the comments that I'm just covering for how much I suck, let's do a practical demonstration, shall we? Here are 2 Transformers miniatures that I 3D printed. Can you tell at a glance whether either one will shoot the other? You can't, but we raise the camera ever so slightly overhead like a developer with some common freaking sense, and look! Now you can tell what's going on. And of course, the tank controls are just sensitive enough that turning to exactly face your target is a trial unto itself. You will constantly oversteer to face off to the side and have to fidget with the controller until you're positioned correctly, all while the enemies wail on you with impunity. The controls and the camera tag team to make this game virtually unplayable. There are no multi-button attack combos either. You can throw a single punch or a single kick. The game does have 2 area effect arcing attacks to hit someone at an angle. Holding left or right on the D-pad will let you do a spin kick or a bitch slap. The problem is these moves only work when the game's in a good mood, meaning you can't count on either worth crap. Neither can you count on the throw because I tried it multiple times and I got it to work all of once. So not only is the hit detection hot garbage, the button detection is spotty too. The best advice I can give for the game, besides ejecting the disc to huck in the garbage, is to use weapons. You can pick up pipes, knives, and crowbars by pressing X and attack with them using the punch button. Weapons deal more damage and have better range than punches and better speed than kicks. If you can get the hang of aiming yourself at enemies, you just mash attacks with a weapon equipped, and you can actually sail through combat. At least, at first. Once I've killed all the enemies in the room, some crow icons appear on the floor and I hear a cawing noise with an icon at the top of the screen flashing. I couldn't figure out what any of this meant, so I looked up the game's instruction booklet and you're going to shit at this. The crows on the ground are indicators that you've cleared the room and they guide you to the exit, but that flashing crow at the top of the screen, yeah, that's your time limit! If you take too long clearing out a room, the enemies all get buffs because the game wasn't punishing enough in the first place. And the time limit isn't even close to the extent of the game's pointless dickery. Lots of enemies drop healing items, but the healing items disappear after like 3 seconds. And you can easily miss picking up healing items for the controls and the camera. This shit gets to the point you wonder if they were trying to spite players on purpose. Every now and then, though, the game does throw you a bone because one of the weapons you can pick up, if you can make out the scrunched models, is a homing rocket launcher. And this rocket launcher usually kills enemies in one hit by making them explode into pixelated ghibli bits. Okay, I'll admit, that is awesome. But even this one tiny bright spot has a drawback because the rocket launcher's homing is crap and it can easily misfire. When this happens, the rocket misses, it circles around its target about 5 times, and by the time it finds its mark, the enemy has moved close enough to you to where you get caught in the blast. And even if the damn thing works right, there's no indicator for what weapon you have on the screen or any ammo count. Why is everything so cryptic? So I bludgeoned and exploded my way through the bar, wind up on some back roads or a port or something, smack my way through more enemies until I wind up on the deck of a ship, and I die. I'm sent back to the menu to start the game over. I was playing for half an hour. How did I not hit a single checkpoint? I know the game has passwords for the continue option on the menu, so why didn't I get one? I wound up looking up passwords on GameFAQs, and guess what? My first play session on pure accident, I got all the way to level 3. Didn't even realize it because there was 0 indication when you finished a stage. So where the hell are my passwords? I thought maybe my emulation was broken, so I looked up a long play on YouTube, and guess what? They didn't get passwords either. So, like, where the hell did these passwords on GameFAQs come from? How do I get to continue? I have to know! I have to know! Level 3 is where shit hits the fan because it's the first level with guns. Enemies will shoot you to death from clear across the stage in seconds. The game disables running while you're in combat, so dodging gunfire isn't a thing. I'm sorry, I thought that I was playing a game about the Crow, as in a superhero whose entire power set is not dying! Dude shrugs off getting shot dozens of times in this very movie, so why do a few bullets suddenly wreck you? Come to think of it, a movie about a guy who can't die was kind of a dumb choice to make a beat-em-up game. You have one option if you want to survive the gun combat. You grab a gun as fast as you can and shoot the enemies dead first. And if you thought aiming a punch was hard, just wait until you have to aim a gun, hazarding a guess as to whether or not you're perfectly lined up with someone from across the room. Missed. You barely get any spare ammo, by the way. I think that's ammo on the ground. I guess I push X to grab it just like, what the hell was that? So to add insult to injury, apparently every gun in this universe is built out of dynamite and explodes the second that it's dropped. Kill a dude with a gun, their weapon explodes, so you can't use it. Screw up and throw your gun to the ground for something else, it explodes, so you can't switch back later. And here's the bitch part. If you get knocked down in combat, you drop your weapon, and if you drop a gun, that weapon explodes. So if you take a single direct hit while shooting, or if a single rocket misfires to where you're caught in the blast, the game disintegrates your only ranged weapon, and it leaves you unarmed. What the hell is wrong with you? So if you screw up once in a gun battle, you're already dead. And there are no mid-level checkpoints. You are stuck replaying the same damn stage over and over until you get that one flawless run without getting shot. And with how near impossible it can be to line up shots in the first place, you're gonna whip my ass raw for one mistake? Fuck you! Shitty of Angels is widely regarded as one of the worst games on the PlayStation. It is designed to punish you for every minor screw-up. Take one bad hit or have one rocket misfire, you lose your gun and you've pretty much lost. Get ganged up on and take one bad hit, you drop your weapon and you probably can't maneuver to pick it back up. And it gets really tedious, really fast, having to replay each broken level umpteen times until you nail all the tricky encounters in one straight shot. I got used to aiming attacks pretty quickly, and if you can get used to the gun combat, the game's not all that hard, but everything is rigged so that once you start losing, you keep losing. You have to stay in the zone, land all your shots, position yourself to take out targets with plenty of distance and reaction time, and spam the living balls out of save states. There's an urban legend through the internet that the game has a hidden Easter egg. Supposedly, if you beat the game in under 50 minutes and push triangle during the credits, a crow flies at the screen and turns into Brandon Lee as a memorial. Unfortunately, nobody's been able to confirm whether this Easter egg exists because beating the game that fast is next to impossible. Even the fastest long plays tend to clock around 80 minutes. And that reminds me, the crow's face on the game's box art and main menu doesn't look a thing like the dollar store pencil scribbles that they used in the movie. I guess someone finally realized that Vincent Perez's makeup was crap. The first boss fight, because yes, this Drek has boss fights, is against this dude called Spider Monkey on the ship. He scurries around dodging all your hits and running out the time limit that this fight has for some reason. Oh, and Ash drops any weapon you're holding when you go to fight a boss. 'Cause you know, violent, unrepentant criminals who slaughter the innocent deserve a fighting chance, I guess. Luckily, there is a way to beat him. You see, Ash has this flying dropkick move that deals a ton of damage and is near guaranteed to land a hit, and he only does it during boss fights at pure random when you mash the kick button. I'm not making that up! Who designed this? We get an FMV of Spider Monkey burning to death as the ship explodes and level 1 complete? The instruction booklet says I've beaten 3 levels, so do I get my password now? No, of course not.
Okay, that's it. I can't take it. Where are the freaking passwords? Where are the freaking passwords?
Am I not getting passwords because I'm playing on easy? Well, fine then, let's bump it up to normal, see what happens. Replay the first level, nothing too much has changed yet. I make it all the way to level 2, still no password. Fine, we'll bump it up to hard. Now enemies are notably stronger, more aggressive and using powerful throwing attacks, but I got to the end of the stage and... Yes, they do exist. I got a password, and I had to play on hard difficulty to get it. And hold on, that password is different from the one that's on GameFAQs. If every difficulty has different passwords, then how do you get the others? I've looked all around online. My friends Schnick and Alma did research. Near as we can tell, the PlayStation version is flawed to where it never gives you passwords for the easy or normal difficulties. So unless you get the continue codes online like I did, you either have to play the game on hard or you have to finish the entire campaign in one life. That is utterly inexcusable. Basically, when this game was new, it was hopelessly unplayable until someone found and published the codes. And I still want to know if someone hacked these codes out of the game or if some poor bastard developer leaked them to the public as penance. Anyway, the next gang member you're chasing is this lady named Kali in a cemetery? Okay, Ash does visit a grave in the movie, but it's to bury his son. Here, the instruction booklet says we're going to a cemetery so Ash can see his grave and confirm he's not crazy. And we fight Kali in a church instead of an apartment like in the film. We killed Spider Monkey in a freighter instead of a warehouse. And the order of the bosses is wrong since Kali dies third in the movie. They used several lines from the finished film, and they copied the butt-fugly piss yellow neon hue the movie used for almost all its shots to where it looks like you're staring at pure vomit! So obviously they had access to the finished movie, so why did they change everything? The tomb level starts out with you in a field of skulls that explode for absolutely no reason. You're fighting a field of melee dudes until a douchebag with a rocket launcher just walks out and massacres you out of nowhere while you're busy. Then the next room has a guy strapped with dynamite in a room full of more exploding Molotov cocktails. And once I survive all that, I get pinned in a corner by a never-ending conga line of enemies because like 10 dudes spawn in this one room. Yeah, even though the game's engine is so shitty that only 2 enemies can ever exist at a time, there'll be way more than 2 enemies in a room. They'll just spawn somewhere at random off-screen. Unless the game gets lazy and has them materialize out of nowhere to rub your nose in the game's assness. The key to this level is to grab a skull when you first start, huck it to detonate all the rest, then rush to the right and grab a hidden off-screen rocket launcher before one of the enemies can. Because yes, enemies will steal your weapons if you don't get to them first. This whole game is a troll. Then I managed to shotgun my way through to level 5, the graveyard. This level's not so bad since you mostly just bludgeon people to death with... What are those? Are those severed arms? You're beating people to death with severed arms that are just strewn across the ground? What the hell happens in this cemetery that stray limbs are just hucked all over the place? Is this Jigsaw's retirement home or something? And what blows my mind is that the baseball bat weapon is virtually useless because it breaks after just a few swings. Ditto for a shotgun if you try swinging it after it's out of ammo. But a loose flesh and blood human arm you found lying around, that shit's hard and durable as a crowbar. People are built solid in whatever the hell city this is. Oh, and then you just get dropped into a gun battle without warning and massacred because you probably didn't have the reaction time to spot and go for a gun in the 2 seconds before you get pumped full of holes. Joy. Level 6 is the church. It opens with another insta-kill gunfight, and then the game introduces platforming. Oh, sweet shit. You're supposed to swing from 3 consecutive chandeliers to reach the next part of the level. Anywhere else in the game, you'd just hold forward and you would cross automatically. But here you hold forward and you fall on your ass and you lose an entire health bar. There is zero indicator or precedent for what button you're supposed to push to make these things work, and you're stuck endlessly redoing a frustrating gunfight until you figure it out. So just guess. Just freaking guess how you get the chandeliers to work. You hold up to jump to the first chandelier, then you release up and hold left to swing from it, then you immediately release left and hold up again when it comes time to jump to the next one, and then you hold left again and repeat the process. What the hell is even left? Like the game decided for this one room to ditch the tank controls? And then you fight the boss Kali. Fun fact, Kali is a ninja in the movie and by far the most skilled fighter in the gang, to the point they even cast the yellow Power Ranger to play her.
Do you know how to fight?
Do you know how to die?
So of course she dies by you just mashing the punch button as she fails to even try to dodge or counter a single one of your hits. They decided to try and convey that whole ninja thing by just having her turn invisible repeatedly, but honestly it looks more like the game's bugging out than any kind of an intentional mechanic. Level 7, the Day of the Dead, is the worst level yet. It's a long stage and it's mostly gun battles. You're screwed in the opening area unless you find a hidden rocket launcher before the enemies do. You're screwed if a single shot goes wonky. You're screwed if you miss 1 or 2 times with a machine gun in a room that spawns tons of armed jackholes. You're screwed if a single new enemy pops up in the wrong place and surprises you. And apparently you're screwed if the game just decides to spawn extra rocket enemies because the last 2 foes in this room sometimes had different weapons. This is the gauntlet, man. The point where any sane person would just rage quit, only you've come too far to rage quit now. At least the boss is piss easy. He dies to mashing punch again, and I'm pretty sure the game bugged to where his attacks just whiffed right through me. That or the game finally remembered I'm the goddamn crow and punches shouldn't even faze me. Level 8, the club,
So go back to the club.
is outright tame by comparison. 2 brief gun encounters and then you just butcher everyone else with swords. The next boss fires rockets out of his guitar? Okay, neither rockets nor guitars nor rocket launching guitars are anywhere in the movie. I figured out a long time ago that characters can't fire weapons at point-blank range, so you just run up to him and he strokes out and sits there helpless while you beat him to death. He just blocks the whole time, so the fight takes an eternity. How is it that the first boss in the game was the second hardest by a vast margin? The rest of the gang go down like bitches! The game then shows an FMV of this random lady painting when she gets kidnapped by the gang to use as bait to capture Ash. We have never, ever seen this woman before. The next level you're in some tower fighting guys who chant Judah. And the next cutscene has some black guy you've, again, never seen before trying to steal the crow's powers. Confused? You should be. These are 2 major characters from the film who were introduced at the very start of the movie, but neither are so much as mentioned until the game's about over. Judah is the occultic drug lord who basically runs the city, and Sarah is an artist who just kind of instinctively knows about the crow, becomes Ash's kind of friend for no reason, and then gets kidnapped to drive the rest of the plot. Sarah was meant to be the teenage girl from the first film who would fill in Ash on his powers and have a romance that derails his quest for revenge. But producer Harvey Weinstein cut practically all her scenes, leaving Sarah's presence vague and entirely pointless. City of Angels was notorious for having a towering mountain of deleted footage, and none of that material made it into the game. So the game keeps up this weird trend of doing its own thing, while still requiring you to have seen the movie to have any idea what's going on. Level 9's just more basic combat that you're sick to death of by this point, up until the last room. It's packed to the brim with rocket launching enemies in tight confined spaces to maximize your chances of blowing yourself up. And there's a separate area with tons of obstructions, so you can barely nuke the enemies. And this is the one room all game, at least on easy mode, that breaks the game scripting to allow more than 2 enemies at once. I almost think this room's pure luck, man, even if you know what you're doing with rocket combat by this point. Judah kills the crow, the actual bird, that's Ash's link to the land of the living, and he steals Ash's powers to become the new crow because he wants to rule hell or something. That's what the instruction booklet says, even though he didn't really have a motivation in the finished film. Ash gets hucked out a window, and then you're in hell, I guess, and you have to fight some Cenobites to escape. Yeah, luckily they don't teach mixed martial arts in hell because these things go down just like any other default enemy and are easy as crap, even running out the level's time limit to where they all start exploding. The camera's a bigger threat than the demons are because I'm stuck having to fight a guy who's off screen. And then it's time for the final battle with Judah. He's a tough son of a bitch, but he's got a weakness, and that weakness is being in a shitty video game. By sheer luck, I wound up in a spot where Judah couldn't hit me, and I punched him to death at my leisure. Yes, I beat the final boss through a game bug. I'm not even sorry. We see Judah's soul burning in hell, I think. It's better than the movie where CG crows turn him into a CG blob and he dies by CG whatever. Sarah dies and Ash reunites with his son to go on to heaven, I guess. The game's over. So that was The Crow, City of Angels, a game packed with abysmal controls, useless cameras, and broken gun combat, with the cherry on top that the developers didn't stop to check whether or not the passwords worked. And while I was able to acclimatize to the controls enough to finish the game, it's still nowhere near good. Even when the game works right, it's just you fighting effectively the same one enemy copied and pasted 232 times. Yes, the walkthrough counted. There's absolutely zero variety, no pep or energy to the combat, and whether they were being faithful to the movie's visuals or not, it looks like mangled shit. It's slow, tedious, and painfully boring, and that's when it's working. City of Angels was the last finished game to be developed by Grey Matter, a developer that was prolific from the Atari era on through the 16-bit consoles, made a veritable hit list of AVGN review subjects, but flopped hard when gaming jumped to 3D. And that explains a lot. There are always casualties when gaming makes a new leap in technology, but this is one casualty I don't think anyone's going to miss.
Hey, clown face. 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 Hey, clown face.